My name's Paul Keating. I am the Deputy Branch Secretary of the Maritime Union of Australia, Sydney Branch.
When you talk your presentation about this company that sued you and basically the future of the union is involved, the situation for the working class worldwide is under attack, but particularly Longshore locals are under privatization of ports and automation. This company is also suing the ILWU and won this judgment of $97 million. What is the connection between the attacks on longshoremen around the world?
It's the same company, ICTSI, and it was awarded a port contract in Melbourne, in Victoria, by the Conservative government of the day. The company came in and from a greenfield site, from the bottom up, built a fully automated terminal. From that point on, we found ourselves in a significant battle with this company because firstly they wouldn't allow the union to go into the workplace, wouldn't engage with the union.
They wanted a union-free operation.
Pretty much. The company though, and this is an unfortunate and disappointing period in history, labour history in Australia. But what we found was that we have 3 unions in the maritime industry, and the officers' union, known as the Australian Maritime Officers Union, agreed with the MUA that we would enter into a memorandum of agreement and that we would tackle this together.
A united front.
A united front. So the senior personnel in the terminal would be under the AMOU, the Officers Union, and we would have all the dockers, clerks, everyone else. That's how it works on the waterfront. And we didn't have an issue with that. Disappointingly though, the company in some backdoor way approached the other union, and the union drew up a contract, a collective agreement, and that encompassed all the waterfront there, so every job.
Wall to wall.
Yeah, every longshore man and woman's position. Bear in mind, this is a fully automated terminal.
So how many workers are at that terminal?
Well, it's decimation. You're talking about a handful.
On the entire terminal, a handful of workers?
Yeah. I mean, there's maybe 100, whereas a terminal of this size, you would require 400 or 500 workers, and that's without the staff. So we're talking about a significant attack. This automation isn't some mechanisation changes or technological advances to advance and assist dock workers. This is the complete and utter destruction of communities with market forces delivering for the rich.
The capitalists say, well, it's more efficient. What is the reality about the automation of these docks?
Well, there's a couple of things in that. The global stevedore companies do not argue that anymore. They don't argue it because the facts are there. It is not efficient. And yet for 150 years, probably for epochs, the issue's always been by the bosses class, they want more from the workers for less, more productivity. Well, we gave them efficiency with machines that were operated by workers. We gave them efficiencies in collective agreements, contracts, in dealing with employers' issues, and we find ourselves in this space now with full automation. This company, I must say though, has fought the other union through this current contract. The MUA didn't really need to do much, but many of those dockers are coming to the union, the MUA, and it was in this space a couple of years ago where one of the delegates, the workplace shop stewards, was terminated, was sacked. And that initiated a response from our membership, the rank and file in every waterfront company, They convened a meeting and they marched down. They stopped the whole waterfront in Melbourne. It was out of that dispute, and they stayed there and demanded over a course of a number of days that the delegate be reinstated. That matter's not over. The union's still pursuing the worker to be reinstated, and I can't speak too much around where that space is.
But this lawsuit, the use of lawsuits to go after the MUA, well, what does that mean for the MUA?
Yeah, well, the lawsuit that's come out of this, and this is the industrial relations landscape in Australia. The industrial laws, like we see with neoliberal policies and agendas right across the world, not just the Western economies, Western countries, but right across the world, is that trade unionism is outlawed, and it's the layers of those laws that are designed to either bankrupt unions, where employers, if there's a dispute outside of, very fine periods of industrial action under law that can be taken, that these workers will be subjected to being sued. Unions will be subjected to being sued. Individual officials or organisers, officers of the unions, will be,
organizationally and individually, they want to bankrupt the union and the workers and the officers.
Yeah, and this has been going on now in Australia with these laws for more than 2 decades. So it's hyper-regulation against working class people and their unions, and deregulation, freeing up of the markets through Trades Practices Acts, competition laws that allow industry, the bosses, multinationals, to do as they want.
Well, in the United States, they Trump shut down the government, and the head of the airline flight attendants, Sarah Nelson, called for a general strike against that. Do you think that there's going to be a collective action of the entire working class to defeat these attacks? Because they're going on in so many places against so many unions. Well,
you only have to look at Chile at the moment. Chile's burning. The working class are rising up against neoliberalism. It's not the only country. And even when the working class get organised and vote democratically in these liberal countries,
so-called liberal countries.
Yeah, so-called. Well, we see in Bolivia, for instance, a socialist party, a socialist leader, get elected by the people, and a coup d'etat.
With the United States organizing.
Imperialism again, imperial American forces and imperial capitalism destabilising countries and peoples where that they demand the right to self-determination. We can't strike in most Western countries, and for that matter across the world. The working class can't, because they take away our dignity. We can't work. We black band. They take away what money we do have. They take our homes. They bankrupt our unions. At some stage, and I speak to our members, and the voice is getting louder with unions like the MUA and the leaders, and as well as the workers. But in most of my meetings now, I make the point to say that it is now that we organise general strikes. It's now that we start shutting the ports down and demanding, as we do when it comes to collective agreements, our demands that we want, that we nail on the wall. Now we have to demand for our communities.
Gentrification. Workers aren't even being able to live.
Well, at
the ports.
We call that social cleansing. It's a social cleansing of our communities, because the waterfront communities are now the property value is very high. They've been doing that to us for centuries. I come from a maritime family, born in Liverpool, England. And in the 60s they started purging the waterfront, pushing us out of these wonderful communities that build these cities. let's not forget, workers build everything around them. We build and enrich our societies because of our labour. We build dignity in that, and we enrich through our collective strength, but also in the values of our communities, which include the arts, and most importantly, the stories that are told by those dear comrades like yourselves, and in the struggles that we hear in these assemblies.
So this, there needs to be an international campaign, because it seems that this is happening in Oakland, where they're trying to privatize the ports. It's happening in Portland.
Yeah.
I mean, it's happening on a global level, but there's no global campaign, political education campaign, to say we're going to end this together with the communities, saying we're going to protect the working class, we're going to protect the dockers.
Yeah.
I mean, do you see that as a task of an international labor movement, fighting on a global level around these issues of what capitalism and imperialism is doing?
Most definitely. It was only a handful of years ago, under the IDC, that dockers of the world stopped their ports. Some with more capacity than others, but we stopped. We're going to do that again. And it isn't just dockers, because in those struggles you build and inspire other workers and unions to join that struggle and to fight against this global chaos of capitalism.
They're facing the same attack, privatization of public services.
And their struggle is our struggle. We are the working class, you know. We are the 99%.
What about the political parties? In the United States, the unions have been tied to the Democrats, which is a pro-capitalist, pro-imperialist party. There are workers' parties that are actually implementing the policies of the capitalists, the multinationals, despite their language. What is the political crisis for labor?
Well, the truth of the matter is that the great win of neoliberalism is that it has consumed the political space in all countries. We don't have the traditional Labour parties anymore, because those that run it and those that are in it are neoliberals.
They accept the capitalist framework. They say this is what you have to accept.
But the Western idea of democracy is not democracy for the working class. This is the issue. Until we start organising our thinking about what democracy is really looks like, the working class, until we do that, we will be enslaved to a ruling class system. It's just essentially like America. Australia's no different, and we go around Europe, it's the same. Two ruling class parties to maintain the order of capitalism and neoliberalism, so that the masses do not have the ability to self-determine what their communities and societies look like, countries.
So do you see a future of the working class of the world uniting? I mean, the technology is there. Workers are linked up. Dock workers are linked up. But workers in technology, all kinds of workers are linked up internationally. They're fighting the same capitalists on a global level.
Well, with this technology, the working class is on the move right across the world. Places are burning because of dislocation and disconnect because of the chaos of capitalism. We're on the move, and we are loud, and we are growing, and we are organising in our communities, and revolution is being spoken about again. Revolution for the working class. Democracy in this system is a ruling system. But democracy for the working class is the discussions we are having in forums like this, in the streets where they burn, and we will continue to grow. This is a global movement. Not just the IDC, the working class are on the move, and at some point we know that there's a climate crisis that faces the world, a catastrophe of such enormity never in human history, and we're talking about only in the next 10 years. If we don't turn that around, there will be no security of food, no security of water, and when we get to that point, the guillotine ends up coming out.